Hello, everybody, and welcome to the South African Transactional Analysis Association's YouTube podcast video thing that we're doing, where we are meeting members of SATAA and also talking about how we can make TA more potent and powerful and effective in a world where we are so divided that it feels important to recognize our shared humanity. And so, in that vein, I thought it would be amazing to speak to Sophie Bruas, who is from France originally, but living in Kenya, in Nairobi. And Sophie is a CTA and about to become, literally, like as we speak at the time of recording, a PTS STA, and is on the journey to just continuing her TA um, journey wherever it takes her, really. But she plays an important role in being a member of the South African transactional analysis community because we're almost wanting to feel that we're not just South Africa, but a part of the world, and Africa is included. And she's also part of the International Transactional Analysis Association, and plays a role in uniting and linking the Middle East and Africa. And today we're going to just be chatting about that and what that means and how that role emerges and what's planned for us so that as members of SATAA, we can see how we can get involved and how we can just grow TA to be a really powerful force of relating and discovering ourselves and each other in the world. So Sophie, lengthy introduction, but thank you for being here. It is a bright and early Friday morning at the time of recording. So thank you so much for being here. Sophie, I met you through Karen Pratt, who is our chairperson, and we were part of an educational TA group together. Tell me a little bit about your TA journey and how you've got to where you are. Where did it start and where has it gone to?
So yes, I am in Kenya. I realized that I have been now 30 years, 2026, 30 years in Africa and 20 in Kenya. So I borrow from Keith Tudor to say I am adopted, I'm very grateful. And I think I will come after a bit later, maybe about how that shape my commitment to both STAA and ITAA. But my journey started with I am a coach. I am an executive and leadership coach. I work with teams and individuals. I've started that about 15 years ago, and I am avid learner. So I felt like, oh wow, how do I continue my development? And I felt that I needed something like a bit more strength in the psychological aspect behind coaching without becoming a psychologist. I wanted to have a more robust way of looking at the people's development. And I joined a TA 101. I wanted to, there is very little, and I don't know how it is in South Africa, but in Kenya, we had at the time very little opportunity for CPD. So I look online and I reach out to Rosemary Napper, who said how surprising she was visiting Kenya. So it was really out of the blue. So I did my TA 101 like this and then kind of left it aside. I was really happy about it. But like many, I'm sure that people that listen say like, wow, that's great. And then nothing. And it's much later when I became a supervisor and I trained with Colin Brett in the UK that I started recognizing the language, the TA language through the training. So the training wasn't especially focused on TA to become a supervisor, a coach supervisor, but the language was there. And I felt like quite at ease with it. I felt like, wow, that resonates. So post my diploma in supervision, I decided that I really wanted to explore TA more, and I reached out to Karen, and that's how the journey really began.
Amazing. So just say Colin Brett runs coaching development, which is also we do a lot of there is a link with Karen and coaching development. So I just want to acknowledge that as well for those people listening,
Yeah.
is go onto their website. They run amazing courses and do online stuff for, if you want to explore TA. So it's interesting, Sophie, because I find that people often meet TA with fascination. And I'm intrigued as to how do we get people to realize that TA is beyond fascinating? Because the TA 101, which you run, you are now and run very powerfully. How do we get people to realize that you've done your TA 101, but there's just this whole world of script and okayness and just self-awareness and exploration in relationship that we can get just beyond fascination.
Yeah. I think that in TA, what makes it unique, and it's about social psychology, but what makes it for me unique is that it's accessible. And I think Byrne wanted it to be accessible. Um, and we need to remember that it's to be applied. It's TA needs to be applied, and it's how we create opportunity in learning. We think about transfer of learning. So is how do we create more opportunity to apply right from the beginning? That you don't need to be a CTA to apply TA. And there is kind of a gap at the moment that say like, oh, you do TA 101, it's 2-day training, and then CTA is a 5-year journey. So there is maybe a bit of like, and yeah, but TA is great, fascinating, but I don't know how to do it. And what I notice in Kenya with the alumni and people, and when I did some call with people from South Africa and mixing people in Kenya as well, they are saying they are curious to say, but how do we apply it?
Mm,
Help us to understand how do we apply it. So I think we need to put more emphasis post TA 101 to create simple way to apply TA in our day-to-day work, home, relationship at large.
mm. Absolutely. You run I think it's bi-yearly get together where we get together as in terms of the Middle East and Africa, and we'll talk about your role there. And that was one of the things that came up when we met with all of these different people who had experienced TA, done a TA 101, and they were all the question that was really raised the most was where to from here? And we often just say CTA, and it's exactly that, is realizing that through these associations that we are creating and the connections that we're building together, perhaps there is a way that we can start exploring this more and
Mm,
inviting people into that circle. I think it's incredibly powerful. I want to find out about your
mm.
CTA journey because a lot of people, no one knows what a CTA is unless you've done a CTA. So, it's like, why get a CTA? Why on earth go through what
Mm.
it's more difficult to become a CTA than a doctor, I think, in terms of the hours and what the work you have to put in. So why on earth go all that way and do that journey?
Yeah. I think it's personal to everyone that go on to that journey. I think we need to demystify a little bit the CTA while maintaining the incredible rigor that is behind that certification. So CTA stands for Certified Transactional Analyst, and it's basically recognizing that we are practitioner using TA as a way to transform people's life in different fields. Yeah, whether it is through education, which is my field, psychotherapy, counseling, or organization. And that is in itself quite a bit of a first step towards CTA is to recognize where do I practice and where do I apply TA? Am I applying TA within a context of work and organization? Am I applying TA in the context of personal development, education, or even in schools or in structures, educational structures? Applying in psychotherapy or counseling. So I think that there is a first decision to says like to recognize where is the place where I practice TA, or I have opportunity to practice TA the most. And how do I do that? And I think CTA, it starts from that point. It's a journey. The exam at the end is the final part of the CTA and the new part of the journey, but it's a recognition in a way, and is really a journey to acknowledge all the work that we do. So we become practitioner a long way by embracing it. And the rigor comes from the amount of supervision we do, the amount of training we do to continue developing ourselves. And it's a written and an oral exam. But even that in itself is could feel daunted, and it could have also a lot of amazing moment of pausing and realizing, who am I as an educator? Myself, who am I as an educator? At the beginning of doing this, I was even not willing to use the word educator. Felt really like I felt a little bit as a fraud and say like, but I'm not a teacher. Am I an educator? What I was calling it, I am a facilitator of learning, and that felt really right as a coach. And through that journey of CTA, I've embraced that actually I am an educator. I am impacting transformation and development of people through learning. So I felt very proud by the end, but that was a journey. I don't I can speak a lot about CTA because I think it's a very pivot moment in the life of TA practitioner, to take that time to really rigorously think about, who am I? What is my own journey of learning? How am I actually applying through that case study, for example, but how am I applying TA in a way that is mine, that is aligning with who I am? And how do I embrace theory, which is the last section of our writing CTA, but is how do I embrace theory in a practical way? So in each of those questions, there is a part of like, but you, how do you do it? There is the theory, critique, and apply. And I think I quite like that. I think it's a good intellectual challenge as well.
Absolutely. It's is one of the things that I'm on my journey to CTA, and one of the things I've realized is that the journey isn't just about learning academic theory and frameworks and models, but it's really about learning, who am I? Even just you saying, being able to say I'm an educator, just that sense of just settling into my identity and just who I am. And I think TA is very powerful in allowing us to, I always want to say, I don't like reauthoring scripts, but choosing new behaviors that are not based on our scripts. And it's just such a powerful personal journey to re-identify ourselves and just rediscover ourselves. And I think that that's what I'm experiencing as I'm going on the journey. And I'm sure it doesn't
I'm glad
end
you
when
do.
you get a CTA. So
Yeah.
it just carries on. So yes. So Sophie, thank you for that, and well done on getting your CTA. I met you before you were a CTA, and now I see you as a CTA, and I can just see the difference in how evolved you are. So, but you are now also a part of the ITAA, and you so tell us a bit about what is the ITAA and what is your role on the ITAA?
Okay, so the ITAA is the International Association of Transactional Analysis that's been created by Bern, I think in 57. I mean, it's quite old. We had a major turn last year where ITAA became a professional association. And that you talk earlier about rebirth or something of as new identity. If we think of the cycle of development, there is certainly with that an invitation to rethink about ITA becoming something different and honoring the past. I think there is really something. So I'm sitting as a board member. I am representing Africa and Middle East. So it's called a director at large. And well, someone told me,
Very impressive.
someone told me that in the UK, at large means when you just get out of prison or
Oh,
something like
really?
that. So it's really funny.
Sounds
So
appropriate
I haven't
then.
figured yet. I haven't figured yet what's the parallel and how it had
Yeah.
to apply. But I think that I've been invited to join ITAA, and I felt, wow, it was like, I felt first very my ego, my not my ego set, but my personal ego felt like, woo, that's nice. But I think I come from a family of where people took part of a lot of volunteering work, and do a lot of pro bono and doing things like that. So naturally, it makes sense. I think that being part of a professional association is also a um, it's a social and radical act, political act, to be part of a professional association. And I'm thinking of that even more. I think like now it's like something that is I did it not really knowing, but when I think about it, I think that actually I really encourage people to do that, because it's an act of saying I belong to something and I want to belong to that. And for me, belonging to the International Tea Association means that I am part of a wider community, and there is some moment where we are called to serve that community. And I think it's really fundamentally that association is moving toward like really wanted to serve its member. We have an amazing board at the moment. We have an amazing leadership of that board who is also part of the say SATAA, and very proud of having Marguerite as our president. But we have a vision. She has a vision. We have something that is very inspiring, very ambitious, very inspiring. So I feel very privileged to be part of that, and very privileged to representing Africa and Middle East. So yeah, that's the idea. It's focusing on members, and it's putting back the members at front in our association. That's for me what is important. And if I can add, because of the region we are at, we are a region where we have very small number of people that are members in ITAA, and we are a very large region, and I think that what my call for me and why I'm sitting on that board is to make the voice of Africa and Middle East heard and loud in the global level of TA. And I want to, of course, take what is happening at global level back to the region. But I really, my inspiration is to constantly fight for representation, more representation of our region at global level, whether it is through research, whether it is through leadership, whether it is through participation of committees that are influential. I would like people to feel that this is their home too. And we are in the global ITA. So here is the passionate moment. Yeah, you
I
can
love it.
cut it or
No, I would never. But absolutely, and I do think it is important because ITAA has, to some extent, and with no judgment attached to the statement, it's seen very much as a European community because it was so strong, and there's the Europe, influence, the Bern Institutes in London, all of those things. And there is a sense of, we're kind of separated from that. And my experience of being an ITA member now, and also we've just, for those of you who are listening and are part of the SATAA or wanting to join, we've recently been put into one of the tiers that makes it so much more affordable for us to be a part of the ITAA. And when you become a member of the ITAA, it's not just, and I've realized this recently as well, it's not just actually getting access to the journal and reading academic articles. The script is incredible, which which you can subscribe to, but the the there is such an excitement about you getting involved and participating in the ITAA, which I've been so excited by, is, just invitations to me. And I'm just like a little person who's done a few years of studying TA and, on the journey. And they're like, come be a part of creating and co-creating this space. And I do think it's incredibly powerful. And I think it's worth looking at being a part of the community, but not just joining a membership, but saying, how can we actively get out there and work on creating a world that's more aware and more conscious. And I think that's, I hope I'm adding to what you're saying, is that
Yeah.
it's more than just, representation, etc. It's about Middle East and Africa we're in need of people who are conscious and aware and are able to navigate life in very potent and powerful ways. And I think we're very privileged to have the skills, and we should be working at sharing them more. That's my little TED Talk moment there,
Lovely,
Sophie, that I
lovely.
just had. So maybe I'll cut that. So
No, don't, because I want it to be a dialogue. I think is exactly what it needs. It's about dialogue. It's about
yeah,
inviting voice back and forth. I think what I would like when I hear you talking, I'm like, yes, what ITA is not only for CTAs and PTS TAs and TSTAs, because those are like, and we were talking about our partners and saying like, stop the jargon. Is like we are ITAs. It's for anyone that has a curiosity and interest about TA, that is a practitioner, and you can practice TA without necessarily being a CTA. CTA is a recognition, but it's really very much of I think it needs to have more voice for people that are not yet CTAs. I think it needs to have more voice for people that are, and I would like to add that element that is really dear to me about cultural difference. I think there's something moving. So we've been working, the board members, nearly all women. I think we have one man at the moment. So there is a call. I thought as a feminist, I would never say that, but we need diversity.
you're keeping a
I
very
think we've
straight
been
face as you say that, because immediately I have all sorts of injunctions appearing.
And I think we've been working quite a bit. I'm part of the DEIA, with the diversity, equity, inclusion, and committee task force, and I think that has been really taking. It's been 2 years. John Fleming started it. It's been continuing. We are on our second years. This is really influencing really. So the website is accessible in all languages now. We are moving to making, that was a big thing about language and ITA only in English. There is a big thing about moving and inviting more languages in a more dynamic. The script is changing, and I'm going to invite the SATAA and the members here in January to talk a bit more about the changing that we're doing. But the script will be also accessible in a more dynamic way, where also the voice is going to be, the members are going to be able to put their voice in the scripts in the moment, because it's going to be online. So that's really, really exciting. It's not at all a European. There is IATA, which is the European Association, that is very much through membership of local association. We as ITA have membership with individuals at the moment. So every
Yes.
individuals become a member, while for IATA is the association that becomes a member, and the members of the local association become members or have access to the TAG. Right, so it's very international. We have meeting where we struggle to find time zone, but some people wake up in the middle of the night to attend our board meeting. Some people stays up like through the night, and then really late hours. And I'm quite a commitment there. So there is space for everyone.
Mm.
I lost a little bit the track. I was saying about diversity, and I think one thing that is dear to me, and is also coming very alive now, is cultural diversity. and is bringing our cultural diversity. And another thing that really matters to me about TA is that we are invited to critique the theory. And there is no many school and that are ready to say, yes, come and critique, come and bring something new, come and adapt. We are in 2025, nearly 2026. And how is it for you today? Come and challenge the jargon of Bern.
Mm.
I use less and less and okay, I'm okay, you okay. And now I'm shifting to you can't, I can't, we can't, which is what Pete Shorten used as in revised version or edited version of the OK Choral, and to be more aware of the context, and context can't. And then was Virginia Satir, that was the philosopher that inspired Bern, was very much looking. So going back to that, it's like, yeah, you can't, I can't, we can't, context can't. And I think in your injunction that you just felt, I wonder if what it holds when I say that.
Yeah, we can talk about that afterwards when I'm in supervision with you. So and this is getting into the dialogue that, and I think we could talk for hours. One of the questions I asked is, I sit in the queer community, and, where does the TA, how do we just address that? And recently I've been working with someone in another country in Europe, and she and I have started working together because she's just said to me, I'm in the TA community and I want to work with my people. Just because there was a sense of we wanted to work together based on our shared humanity, just happened to be that. And I think it's beautiful that we are able to have that space to be able to do that, but also that we mustn't feel segregated within that, but just that there's this openness that it's all it's all messy. We're human beings. Let's make this work together somehow and celebrate that diversity. And by critiquing some of, the theory, I think is also so important. I think that's what drew me to TA. Karen interviewed me when I first joined SATAA, and she said to me, why TA? And I was like, because it's evolving. I loved reading, I'm quite Jungian in terms of my psychological slant, but it's quite rigid in places. And, it's almost like people get quite upset if you challenge Jung, because whereas with Bern, it's like, good, you've challenged it. It's amazing. And one of the things that I also love about TA and why I want people to get involved in beyond just TA 101s is, and this is an example that if you don't mind me using it, was in our educational foundational year, or our educational year that we did together. But we were talking about the adult and the parent and the child. And Sophie drew a diagram let me show my hands, of the parent and the child. I don't know if you remember this, Sophie, but holding the adult. And it was such a beautiful image of it wasn't about contamination and using those words. It was about how we can use the parent and the adult and the child to support the adult. And I asked Sophie if I could use that, and I've used that in my organizational talks to speak often about how important all of these are, but it's all about the support. And what we learn from each other, for me, is so beautiful compared to reading just into, TA Today, and the TA journals. Those are important, but the way we get to explore how to use it, which leads me on to my next, unless you want to add something there, but
No, yeah, go
the
ahead. I think we're going to the same. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, because and that's almost what I want to kind of say is that we spoke about how TA is can be so used and so potent. But let's talk practically about how can TA actually make you a better coach, educator? Like, what are we're talking forming memberships and why? I know how much it's changed my life. It saved my marriage. Don't tell my husband, I won't let him listen to this. But it really, it's like literally just the awareness, the self-understanding, and just what I'm able to share. But from your perspective, why, if I'm a coach or an educator, would I want to even be interested in something that's parent, adult, child, because that's what everyone seems to think it is when you first meet TA.
So my head is racing, or ideas is racing in my head, because I think that there is so many ways, and I'm quite keen on, as I said, about applying TA, making it useful. When I first used it, it felt very much, I used it it's a big part of how I supervise. I supervise using TA. I supervise coaches, and now I will continue to supervise TA practitioner. And the TA becomes, and the theory of TA is so useful to be able to reflect and to see and to use a theoretical framework to think beyond our current thinking.
Mm.
And on itself, that was like, wow. And I remember when I joined Karen's first foundational years, I wanted to grab things that I could apply. And I started with a bit of shyness using it um, in my coaching, because I had that big ICF, like don't teach or don't share or don't. And then I relax about that. I'm able to offer a model. The theory don't have to be perfect to be explained, but just drawing on the table a triangle with the hunger, and think like, okay, so what's happening here for you, or the cycle of development, and a client telling me, it's like, yeah, that company of mine, it was in is an ICU, and I really, it's becoming, and then what do we do, and had this beautiful movement. So I find that very applicable. And I love that you said that you save your marriage, because I think that if I am very honest, I probably am a better mother with my young adult girls and teenagers, that when I am able to step in my adult and to say, and to be able to ask like, oof, that sounded like my mom's voice here. What Sophie, today wants to tell my girls or my husband or like or my friend, and it's a lot harder to do it at home. I find it a lot harder, and that's where the foundation years have been really instrumental. I wrote in my CTA, the first year I did no personal work. The second year I started working on myself, and then something shifted for me. But the first year I wanted to do, and I wanted to use it. That was okay. And Karen offered that space of being so not judgmental. Say, make it yours, make it applicable for you. Your journey is unique. Um, we all have different journey, and it doesn't have to be one path. And I think that's also the beauty of being so few in Africa and Middle East, is that we can craft it the way we want. We can ruffle feathers of the establishment, because there is no establishment.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's, let's make it the way we think and critique, but also be mindful of, and that's where it is important to join an association like ITAA. Or it's because we have a code of ethic that we apply to, and there's been amazing work done of that, and now it's all accessible online. It's because we have shared values. It's because we have things that are providing a scaffolding for our development. So I think that's really important.
There's all these organizations that you can form, that you can be a part of. And in South Africa, we've got our little group of people, which, we get together, and we've got a picnic tomorrow. And, it's a sense of community, but also a sense of wanting to really kind of grow as a South African TA community. And then there's the international TA community. And at times people wonder, which do I need to join? Should I join both? Is there any benefit of them? So yeah, chat to me about that link between the two and the benefits of both, if any.
So we were doing focus group to explore a bit about diversity. And I was talking to someone in India that says like, and said something quite striking, is that when I am in SATAA, in my South Asia TA community, I feel like we have a common way of seeing the world. I felt safe. And it's a bit of resonating to what you said about being part of the queer community and wanted to practice amongst, to be together, to do things together. We are seen, we are felt understood. There is many aspects as well of being part of a community. And I think the local organization provide that sense of belonging. And for me, it is important when we don't stay isolated, we don't alienate. To use your word, I think is what you used. We don't alienate. We are part of the wider world as well. And if we stay within our own community, we don't see the wideness of the world. So I think I don't have any formula of you should do this or you should do that. But I think is I feel sitting at the edge. I'm a white woman in Africa. I'm very aware of my whiteness. I felt it was a big challenge for me to represent Africa and Middle East because of the color of my skin. I felt illegitimate to do this, and um, I really I embrace that, and I embrace that without changing it. And yet, I feel like I am at the age and I can give some perspective. And in our talk, I am again at the age of I am part of SATAA because I value being part of an African TA association and wanted to belong there. And yet, I am in Kenya and I've got a very strong French accent. So I hold that as well. And it increasing the perspective, and I hold that without judgment, but awareness of certain maybe privilege that I may hold, especially when I interact with people. And I am sitting on ITAA as well, and I feel like it's a very potent and sometimes difficult position to hold. And I think both places are important of representing and having a representation of TA globally, as well as having a representation of TA locally. So our voice doesn't get lost, but our voice doesn't get suffocated within a local space. If it makes any sense, I feel a bit rambling here. You can
No,
cut out.
I don't think you were rambling at all, because I do think that sometimes people join a local community thinking it's going to be a networking opportunity. And it's not that really. It's really a sharing of knowledge and a share. I mean, obviously, networking and community is thing, but it's not a business networking association. And I always try and get people to just understand that if you're going to join this, this is a community of people who want to go beyond the fascination of TA, and how do we work together to grow that. And I see SATAA exactly that. It's been my link into ITAA. It's almost like the baby step, and now I'm part of the bigger community, or starting to feel a big part of the bigger community. But I think if I didn't have the smaller community of being part of my local group and just feeling, a sense of, yeah, this is okay. I don't actually have to know all of the stuff that, Eric Byrne knew, to be able to be powerful and potent as a person using TA in the world. Just that kind of sense of community is also very important, I think. And I think that's something that the SATAA offers, which I'm very glad that, and we're trying to grow that even more, is to become a community where we really just have that sense of voice and that sense of how do we do this together in that, like you said, in this world and in this country, and in this part of the region of the world that is so fractured. And how do we, so now I'm rambling, Sophie, so please, this is a welcome space to ramble, apparently.
Thank you.
And so, yes. So thank
I'll
you for
challenge
that.
a bit the baby step or the things because I would like to. Um, I see SATA as a in its adult,
Yes.
and I want to invite members of SATA to have a voice at ITAA,
Huh?
not feeling a child position, but rather feeling from an adult and say, how do we practice? How do we see TA? How do we feel and experience TA? So there is really a feeling, thinking, behavior uh, from this part of the world. And what do
Mm,
we have to say?
yeah.
And how do we feel like if you feel I'll challenge it, but I'm also holding as it is. And if you feel that sense of like, oh, it's a big parent there, or it's like ITA, that is what we need to really revisit and say, and then as ITA board of director, I need to say, we need to change that
Mm,
because I want that to be equal. I don't
yeah.
want I don't want ACTA members to feel like, ooh, that's the big deal there. And we need to be a city or having a special badge or to be part of that. And it was like, no, it's just a different global perspective or an African perspective. And I want more of the voice. I want to invite people to write in the script, to research and to contribute. And we when I was writing, I think it's a book that's going to be published next year, but I wrote a chapter with a colleague of mine around education and challenging the parent, the contamination of the colonialist parent in education in Africa or in East Africa. I've said it very. I'm not saying very fast to discount what the chapter is
It
about, but
sounds fascinating. Goodness. Yeah.
it's been really interesting. And what one thing that we notice is the lack of African author in the TA community. So we need that.
Absolutely. I think there's much work to do, and I think it all just starts by us getting online and having conversations and saying, how are we going to do this rather than looking for people to guide us at this point? I think we need to just, we are people who, if you love TA, it's because you love awareness, you love being conscious. And there's a responsibility when you're conscious in the rest of the world. And I think we need to somehow get together and just say, how do we become expansive in our consciousness?
Love that.
So that it's not just us, this little group of 13 people, or, 6 of us at a picnic tomorrow. It's lovely, but there's just so much more work that I think we can do. So hopefully our discussion has just sparked curiosity. I know it sparked curiosity in me, but just in people who might be listening, just to say, how can I just take like a little step forward from where I am in my current TA journey, whatever that means. And it doesn't mean joining the ITAA or SATA, but just what is the next little step? And hopefully, if we keep doing that, who knows what we can change.
Mm.
Sophie, before I end, I want to just ask you, and everyone asks me this, and it was the worst question anyone ever asked me to end an interview. So to punish you for being interviewed by me, I'm going to ask you and say, what is your favorite piece of TA theory?
I'll bring a twist. And I
Ah,
said, my favorite piece of theater today, as of today, this morning, and tomorrow will be different. It's probably the cycle of development.
okay. Yes.
This morning is very here.
Yeah.
It's very clear in my mind.
Yeah.
And the word expensive is for me associated with that cycle of
Mm.
development model.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't know about the cycle of development, please hop onto the SATAA website where there are many service providers offering foundational years and educational experiences where you can learn more about it and see how it can transform your life. So yes, I hate that question because I didn't know it was coming. And I'd literally done my TA 101 about 2 days before. And I was like, I'm okay, you're okay. Because that was literally what I was sitting feeling in the interview. So you answered far more eloquently than I did. So thank you. So yes. Sophie, just thank you for the time we've had together. Thank you for my headphone dropped out. Thank you. It wasn't an earring, luckily. Thank you for just what we've got to discuss. I'm sure this is the start of many more discussions. If people want to reach out to you, can they email you? Are you open to that? To how they
Yes,
could get more
yes,
involved? Okay,
absolutely. And with ITAA, we hope to beginning of next year launch the directory, so you will be able to find me there as well.
fantastic. Well,
And
I'll put in the details. I'll put
yeah,
your email address, etc., to get hold
and
of
if you
you.
are in Kenya, just pass by.
Ah, I did that. And likewise with Cape Town. So yes, you know
All
the
of
invite's always open. So yes, fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you, Sophie. Thank you for the time we've had together. Thank you for the wealth of information. Thank you for the work that you do. Because this is voluntary. It is work you're doing because of your love for awareness expansion, all of those things we've spoken about today. And I just want to give you strokes for the work that you're doing and just for, yeah, for inspiring me. So thank you very much.
Thank you.